Are we on YouTube, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
We're live right now.
Can you see it? Oh, there it is. I just want to make sure the audio. Oh, there it is. There it is. All right, man. Well, hey,
Whoop, there it is.
whenever you're ready,
Whoop, there it is. Okay.
take it away.
All right. Just want to check one thing. All right. And away we go. On this week's episode, HBO Max enters the House of Dragons. We get a warm welcome from Raccoon City, and it's a return to some classic Grand Theft Auto. All this and more as we once again delve into the pop culture cosmos. And we're back with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glasser from Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate you watching and listening and just taking care of all of our shows. But if you can, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do anything that you can to support us right here at Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, the Lakers Fast Break, Humanican Media, and whatever they're doing, including Topicocalypse and the Super BS Gamescast. Plus, we are the #1 tabletop RPG streamer on Facebook, and we're also on YouTube and Twitch there. In fact, we got a great game going on Twitch right now, so please check that out after you watch this show. But right now, we want to go ahead and make sure and let you know we've got a lot of great things going on right here at Pop Culture Cosmos, and if any way you can support us. It is sincerely appreciated. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. He is our own definitive edition of Pop Culture Cosmos. You got to go ahead and check out what he's doing today at popculturecosmos.com, plus all the things that he's doing for Humanica Media, including, like I said, the Super BS Gamescast and Topicocalypse, plus his amazing book, Congratulations, You Suck, which is right now available as a great holiday gift at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. It is my good friend. It is Josh Peterson. What's up, man?
What's up? All right, so let me walk down memory lane with you once more, as is tradition for this show.
Yes, cue the music.
We're just taking a walk. All right, so we went to the King of Burgers for lunch today, right? The Burger King, the BK Lounge, as Dane Cook famously coined.
That guy's creepy. I'm sorry.
Coined the phrase.
That guy's creepy. Yeah, he's very creepy.
Is he? I don't even know what he's been up to since that album came out.
Just that grin on his face, it's just like permanent and it's there and just scares me.
I mean, I haven't seen anything that had him in it outside of Employee of the Month, but I digress. So we went to Burger King, and dude, they've fallen so far from their heyday. Like back in the late 90s and early 2000s, remember you can go and the toys were just like top notch at Burger King. Like they're very high quality. And in addition to the toys, they had you could buy other toys. Like you could buy action figures, or you could buy the big like Toy Story collector puppets, or you could buy, remember when Pokemon the first movie came out, you could buy the metallic Pokeball that opened up and inside was this like gold.
Same thing with McDonald's.
Pikachu. Yeah, McDonald's had the Batman Forever mugs. You could buy the Flintstone stuff. Like there was genuine collector items being sold at these places. But now you go to Burger King, and Burger King is just a shallow shell of what it used to be. Like the toys are just, nobody cares about the toys. McDonald's is the same thing outside the Pokemon cards they had. But I tell you, man, like what happened? Like when did people still buy Happy Meals and kids meals? So do you think we're ever going to return to a time when like pop culture and fast food played on the same field?
Well, it's the same thing now. As things get more expensive, the other things in life that go along with it become much cheaper as far as how they're made, how they're constructed, and they become less valuable because they're mass produced. So things of the past, like those collectibles you talked about, are now really collectible. I'm sure there's some kids' toy meals, kids' meals toys from McDonald's years past and Burger King years past that were done in correlation, let's say like the mini Hot Wheels that were
Oh yeah, that's
available and
right. I
Barbie
forgot about
stuff and things of
those.
that nature. And the thing tie into whatever movie or TV thing that was going on at that period of time in the 80s and 90s. And even back way back when, even earlier than that, some of those are really valuable these days. Now you get to the point where you look at the kids meals and all the toys and prizes that come with it and just, yeah, come on,
It's
give
just,
me a break.
and I mean, and Chick-fil-A, bless their heart, they're not even trying. They're just like, we're going to give you a coloring book, and that will be enough for us. And kids still, and even the coloring books are more like high quality than the plastic toys you get from McDonald's.
You know what? You know what's next, my friend?
What?
The next thing is going to be in the future for these kids meals is going to be just a QR code, and you're going to have to scan it, and then it just pops up online, and then they give you like a paint tool, and they say go at it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be where we're heading. It's going to be a QR code that's going to give you a link to a game, and inside this game, you'll be able to find a QR code, and inside that QR code is just going to be like a page you can color. If you
Or a $5 coupon off at your local retailer. So there you go.
exactly the great the great days of pop culture and fast food have sadly come to an end, and
Well, look on the bright side, my friend, though. In just a few short weeks, once again, we will be blessed in our lives with the McRib, as the McRib will debut once again this November.
so you know what I do, and the McRib, and also McDonald's is now serving fries in a boat. I mean, this is the moment we've all been waiting for. Like, why we don't need to go to Wendy's anymore. We just go get a boat full of fries at McDonald's because their fries are actually really good. They're
For 10 minutes. Remember, there is a lifespan on those
well,
fries.
you just got to eat them quick. Same thing with the nuggets. Like, you don't eat the nuggets within 5 minutes of getting them.
You throw
It's
them at
like,
somebody later on, half hour later, and it hits them in the eye. It'll look like take an eye socket out.
yeah, you give them that's a concussion material right there. Is what we like to call it.
Well, my friend, it is going to be an outstanding episode. Fast food reflections aside, we're going to have a tremendous episode. We're going to give you a box office report here in a sec where we talk about No Time to Die, what is Venom still doing, and so much more. Plus, we're going to talk about HBO and HBO Max just dropped a new trailer for I guess you could say it's a prequel to its most successful series ever. This is coming, a prequel called The House of Dragons. So we're going to talk about The House of Dragons, how it ties into the larger mythos of everything going on that went on with the Game of Thrones. So we're going to talk about House of Dragons and just talk about our interest level for it coming up here in a bit. Plus, we're going to be talking about Rockstar dropping the news that early next year they're going to be dropping GTA the Trilogy. That's right. Three of the most favored games in the series are coming back together in a grouping, remastered, all that good stuff. And it's coming actually in the first half of 2022. And actually, I'm sorry, that's for Android and for iOS. That's going to come out for mobile. It's actually going to come out for consoles later this year, according to Rockstar. So we'll see about that one. There was no definitive date. So we're going to go ahead and get those games coming back. But this is, three of the biggest titles ever from Rockstar, and how it really just branched out and just made sure that everybody knew about the GTA dominance that's there in the video game market and helped bring out that dominance with GTA. We're going to talk about if it's still a good deal to go ahead and get these games in this bundle, and ask if the Trilogy is something that you should go ahead and look out for coming up in the program as well. Plus, also, we've got Welcome to Raccoon City. Just dropped a trailer that's coming up for November 24th. It's going to come on Netflix. I'm going to ask Josh if he's excited to get back into those Resident Evil movies once again. Arcade 1UP has announced some holiday arcade editions. So we're going to ask, I'm going to ask Josh if he's interested in any of these editions, including one that has been long desired by fans from all over that they're finally doing. And I'm going to ask Josh, with this update, is there any still outstanding arcade one-ups he's looking forward to getting sometime in the future? That's coming up on the back end of the show as well. And Jeff Sloboda from the MCU's Bleeding Edge will have a final epitaph on Marvel's What If. Did he enjoy the series overall? And how is Disney Plus and Marvel doing with their television series so far in this first year of television for them? We're going to talk about that on the episode as well. But first, my friend, it is the box office report, and No Time to Die came out this weekend to U.S. theaters. It is scoring well overseas. In fact, it's already over $300 million worldwide at the box office. It hasn't debuted in China. That's later this month. That's going to be a huge market for them, I think. I think it's going to do well. But No Time to Die slightly, ever so slightly underperformed expectations, did around $56 million. I want to hear your thoughts on this, my friend. It got decent reviews. It's got pretty good reviews overall. Metacritic score is right around 70, so it's pretty good reviews for a movie like that. So I think that is something still people probably want to go check out because it is Daniel Craig's last performance, something that's been, I guess, collecting dust on a shelf for an extended period of time because of what happened with COVID and it got delayed so many times. But I think the audience for No Time to Die and 007 and James Bond skews a little bit older than something, say, Venom, Let There Be Carnage. I think that's probably the main reason why it didn't perform as well here in the States.
You know what? Still, $300 million. I mean, whatever the pandemic box office record was, doesn't that completely annihilate it?
No, no, it
What
doesn't. Actually, the Chinese movies have there's several Chinese movies that have performed exceedingly above that.
that have been released in multiple territories, though?
No, in multiple territories, there's still movies that are above $300 million. And in fact, right now, although that is doing very well, Godzilla versus Kong is the movie that
For
is done well, and then
for
F9, the Fast Saga. That even though it didn't, it's not the number one movie here in the States. It has done over $700 million
okay,
worldwide.
all right, all right. But
And Godzilla versus Kong is just under 500 million itself.
yeah,
But it's those two are not even the biggest movies of the year. Hi Mom, that was just a China exclusive, that garnered over 800 million,
Ooh.
and then Detective Chinatown 3 is almost 700 million, and then the Battle at Lake Changjing, which I talked about last week, that one earned $200 million in its first weekend, and now it's over four.
Dang, yeah. I mean, I guess they got
Well,
a
the
whole.
Chinese audience have come back in, I think pretty much full time. It's now the number
Yeah.
one marketplace
Well,
in the world.
so yeah, I was actually like, they seem to have like gone back to life as usual because
Yeah.
I've been seeing like some pictures of people like lining up outside like stores and stuff for collectibles and things, and like
Yeah.
they're back at it, as for James Bond here, like, yeah, I guess it's funny because a lot of the people a few of the people that I work with that I wouldn't assume to be like big moviegoers like went out to see this movie on opening night, and they're like I guess you could call them the over 40 crowd, and they had nothing but great things to say about it. We're gonna go watch it next weekend, so I'm pretty excited about that, but. Yeah, I mean, it's just weird. Like we drove by the movie theaters yesterday, and I just noticed it's a packed parking lot, and that's the first time I've seen it like that in 2 years. And maybe it's because we have Addams Family 2, Venom, No Time to Die. There's a lot of good things out to watch right now,
Yeah.
and
Adam's Family 2 held strong. It earned another 10 million this weekend.
yeah. Yeah, so I mean, it doesn't surprise me that this movie did well, and like you said, it's received plenty of critical acclaim, and I think that just because it's Daniel Craig, like a lot of the critics will argue that Daniel Craig is like one of the best in the top 3 Bonds. So I think that he's gotten a lot of acclaim from people, and it'll just be interesting to see like what happens next with the franchise and how people will receive it. Like, will we see these high box office numbers, or do you think after this people will be kind of burnt out on James Bond and where he's going next.
No, I think there'll still be some interest in James Bond. We speculated that on the previous episode, the PCC Multiverse, who could be the next James Bond. It might have to be an established star, but I think a lot of money rides in getting another relatively unknown individual like Daniel Craig was 20
Yeah.
years ago,
Yeah, and then
roughly,
he
15 years ago, I should say.
yeah, and he's done a great job at like fielding those like social questions, right? Like, do you think James Bond should be a woman? Do you think James Bond should be gay? Do you think all this? And like he's done a great job at like saying, let's make, why does it have to be James Bond? Like, let's make a character that's better than James Bond. If you want a strong female character like they did with 007, in the movie, like branch off, do a 007 movie. She doesn't necessarily have to be James Bond, but she seems like a very powerful character. So give her her own movies, like spin things off. There's a lot of things that James Bond is the films have tackled in the past few years regarding social issues, and I see a lot of potential for spin-off films that could be equally as powerful as James Bond himself.
What this also represents is the fact that everything as far as a final decision still has to go through the Broccolis,
Yeah,
the
yeah, that's
estate
right.
for Albert Broccoli,
Mm.
because they still own half and they own the controlling half. Amazon owns one half, they own the other, and they
Yeah,
have the final say on exactly what happens with the Bond franchise.
yeah,
So before anyone goes to any lengths on speculation on Tom Hiddleston, Tom Hardy, Idris Elba, anyone out there, Henry Golding, any name that's been thrown out there or relative unknown that's been thrown out there, it has to go by the Broccoli's. They were the
yeah,
one that said yes to Daniel Craig, and look what's happened from there. They were obviously the foresight of the studio MGM and them working in conjunction 15 years ago was right, and he developed after a little bit of a slow start developed into such a wonderful James Bond character. And he leaves the series on such high marks. I know Spectre and No Time to Die. Spectre was kind of a little bit of a letdown, but No Time to Die looks like it's, even though it's not the level of Skyfall, it's still a strong way to go out.
yeah. No, I agree, and like I don't know if you've ever read about, like, it's Barbara Broccoli, right? Is the lady, the daughter.
Yes.
Just the lengths that she's go, like her love of this franchise, and just the lengths that she goes to make sure that like everything's done well, and the actors are treated well on set. Like she really like has put a lot of passion and emotion into this franchise, and like I think that it's been all the better for it.
Well, we still want to know what is going to take place in the future for the James Bond series. It is something that, again, on its par, does well in the US, but really has a strong hold in the international markets. To me, it's similar like F9, the Fast and Furious series, where
Yeah,
yes, the US is now just icing on the cake, where its stronghold is in the European, South American, and also the Asian markets. And I still think that James Bond's future is always there first,
yeah,
but anything it gets domestically here in the US is just really appreciated. And I know they've poured a ton of money. We talked about this like last week with Venom. They have poured a ton of money into advertising this movie. I knew when this movie came out. I knew when this movie was going to be released. I knew that it was coming out, and you saw that. I mean, you could not avoid the ads.
yeah.
To me, the $100 million plus advertising campaign is you just knew it was going to be out. You knew when it was going to be available, and I just think that yes, even though it didn't do as well as hopes, it wasn't because of lack of trying.
No, no, absolutely not. Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned like the Fast franchise. Like that started out here as a just like a normal action movie, and now the franchise has evolved into like a worldwide beloved franchise.
Exactly, which is even more beloved worldwide than here.
Yeah.
So, according to the numbers, anyways. But we want to hear your thoughts on No Time to Die. Did you check it out this weekend? It performed slightly under expectations, earning $56 million here in the US. I think, again, because it skews older, I think that's probably the reason why people are hesitant at an older age to come out to the theaters as much as they once did. But we'll see what happens with No Time to Die. It's earned over $300 million worldwide. But We want to hear your thoughts on No Time to Die. Did you like the movie? Did you enjoy it? Did you go see it? Please share us your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, there's still much more to talk about on today's program, my friend. Once again, it's the Pop Culture Cosmos. It's Gerald Glassford, along with my good friend and fellow host, Josh Peterson. Please make sure you catch our shows on Friday and the weekend with the PCC Multiverse with myself and Melinda Barkhouse in the big chair as we talk the latest news and trends of pop culture there. But for right now, my friend, HBO and HBO Max, they dropped a trailer of their own for the highly anticipated prequel to the Game of Thrones, which was such a massive success, and for us, a massive letdown in that final episode. But we won't go there. Or we can if you want, my friend.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I keep, my wife keeps saying that she wants to go back and watch that show, and I'm just like, I don't know if I can do that again. Like, it was so great, and then it just did not do what I wanted it to.
That final season, I think, was overall.
Yeah, the final season was good up until those like last two episodes though. Like, it had such promise, and it made all the drama and the backstabbing feel worth it until you got to those last two episodes.
Wah, wah, wah. But yes, yeah, please go ahead and check out season 6, season 5, some of the earlier seasons, because that's really when it's at its best, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
House of Dragons, which is a prequel to the Game of Thrones, debuted its trailer this past week. And my friend, I wanted to ask you this, because it has such high expectations because of what it comes off of and what it's a prequel to. People are looking forward to this. I want to say this, that I would temper my enthusiasm for this. The reason why is because of what we've seen in the past couple weeks with another highly anticipated prequel and a very popular series in its own right, The Sopranos. The prequel that came out this past couple weeks ago, The Many Saints of Newark, that has done terribly at the box office. I don't know the numbers for HBO Max, so I'm sure it's done okay there at least.
Yeah.
But the demand was probably not what HBO and HBO Max had expected. Let's put it that way. I mean, I think they were expecting a much larger demand for The Many Saints of Newark than what they're getting. With the House of Dragons, that's going to come early next year, I think, from what I'm seeing. I want to hear your thoughts on this. I mean, is the House of Dragon going to be something that you're going to check out? Is it going to be something that's going to be interesting to you? I mean, is it something that's going to be a hit with audiences once again?
Yeah, so I'm kind of trying to figure out the timeline of this. Like, I know it follows the Targaryens,
200 years
right?
before the events of Game of Thrones.
Right. So that's what I was going to say. Like, that doesn't sound like it's going to end in Robert's Rebellion, where they take out the Mad King. So what is the story here that's going to be carrying this prequel, which I'm assuming is going to be, they're going to try to push it to at least 5 seasons. So what is it that's going to be carrying it? Like, what are the stakes for these people? Because we know they got wiped out. But in Game of Thrones, like, the world-ending threat is what they face. So was there another world-ending threat before that? Like, I don't know what the overarching theme is going to be here, and what's going to, in Game of Thrones is what's her name, Dany, trying to reclaim the throne, or it was the dragons, or or the others that were waiting outside beyond the wall. Like, what is the thread that's going to hold this show together? It's going to keep people watching from one season to the next.
It is going to be interesting. And what's, I think everybody has noticed first off when they watch the trailer is the shift in the power of what's going on with the House Targaryen, and everybody who's in charge there, and the families, and who, like you said, there's a dynamic shift that has to take place at some point in time between the events of the House of the Dragon, however long this series runs, and the start of Game of Thrones. So I'm interested to see it from that end. I think though that Game of Thrones had an opportunity, I've said it on the show before, they had an opportunity to do some spin-offs that would expand that series even more, And I think they had the opportunity to go ahead and provide some spin-offs there with some characters from that show that they could directly relate to, which I think would probably be a little bit more popular. This one is going to have to rely a lot on the storytelling to retain a lot of that viewership, because it's going to be something where it's going to have some high numbers initially because everybody wants to check it out. They watch the Game of Thrones. And
Yeah.
then if it does not have that compelling storytelling, there could be some problems there about viewership waning off after a short period of time.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Like, what's the drop off going to look like after season one? You know, are you going to tell a tale that people are going to want to come back to? Because that was the one thing that made Game of Thrones work so well, is that it was intriguing, right? And you had these like big events that ended the seasons, whether it's like the Red Wedding or, um, the Queen being disposed. Like, what is it that's going to keep people coming back to it? Because Game of Thrones already did the shock factor. You know, they already like showed you things that you would have never guessed would have ever happened, especially on a TV show. So what does House of Dragons have to offer, I guess?
Well, it is going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I'm very curious to see exactly how this series will develop and if it's going to retain that type of Game of Thrones magic, which, for the most part, despite the diversiveness as far as people's thoughts on it, some people actually enjoyed that last season entirely, including the last couple episodes.
Yeah.
A lot of people, though, were let down, like you and I, on those last two episodes, and I think that is. Let me ask you this: because of that, do you think there's still some bad taste in people's mouths that will not have them go ahead and check this out? I think because sometimes the last impression you have of it, it just weighs heavily on it. And even though you try to revive this series and how popular it once was, there could be some issues with people not coming back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there will be, and I also believe there's going to be some exhaustion that people didn't realize they had, especially with George R. R. Martin like taking forever to actually write the books. You know, a lot of people are just kind of over it. And uh while the trailer for House of Dragons does look very interesting, it's something I definitely will at least watch a couple episodes of it. I don't. It's not something that I'm like, oh yes, I'm just dying to watch that. Like Game of Thrones is like, oh yes, I can't wait. That looks so cool. With this, it's like, all right, maybe I'll stop by, check it out.
And that's something I think was faulting on the Warner Brothers, HBO, and all that, was that fact that if it was left on a high, you should have started production on this right away. Just like jump on it, get it going.
Didn't,
Maybe the next year,
yeah,
bring it out,
I know they
something like that.
tried to like originally there was like six spin-offs planned, and then they were like, oh, now we're only doing two. Now we're only doing one.
But the problem is you got to jump on it while it's still hot, while it's still
Yeah.
fresh in people's minds. I mean, the case right now with The Sopranos is right now a case study, and you cannot, in every single case, let so many years pass by from your height of popularity, which, again, of a series that ended on, some people didn't like the note that it ended on, but most people liked the series as a whole and followed it all the way through. And then, but so many years have passed by, people are not coming back to see the Many Saints of Newark. And there's now what, 2-3 years in between as a buffer between Game of
Yeah.
Thrones and by the time this finally comes out.
This
That's a lot of time, man.
it
That's a
is.
lot of time.
And we've seen this before though, even outside of the Sopranos. We saw it with Westwood, right? Like people were really stoked about Westwood, and then that movie came out and nobody seemed to really care or want to watch it. So I think there's a shelf life for these. Like if you're going to continue, unless it's like a totally beloved cult classic like Firefly, like I think that these shows, there comes a point when you're going to have to say like, oh, maybe the fandom just isn't there anymore. And we saw the same thing with Blade Runner. Remember, like it was a cult classic of its time, and then 20, 30 years later, the people who saw the original care about it, but then you have all these new people coming up into the world of pop culture, and nobody really seems to. They're not going to give it the time of day.
They didn't give it time of day at box office, but it's performed well in home video.
Yeah.
Right? That's where I think that's what people were waiting for. Okay, I'm waiting for it till it comes out on Blu-ray and DVD. And I remember I tracked it, and it actually trended very well. It was almost selling as well as the Marvel DVDs and Blu-rays of that time when it came out, because I think it's a visual feast, and I think a lot of people who were getting 4K televisions around that time wanted to go ahead. Oh, this is just the perfect movie to go ahead and
Yeah.
pop in my 4K and just go ahead and check it out. So I think that was the deal then. But you're right, it didn't perform well in theaters to the point where it was going to sustain itself forward. I'm still hoping Denis, and I'd love to get a chance to talk to Denis. Come on, Denis Villeneuve, go ahead on the Dune press tour and stop by the
Stop
Pop
by.
Culture
Yeah.
Cosmos. Because I'll tell you
Exactly.
what, we'd love to ask you thoughts on Dune and, of course, Blade Runner 2049 to see if that ever continues. But need I digress on that one more time? I know our fans out there and listeners always, say, hey, probably saying, hey,
We're
you're
just
talking about
gonna
that movie again?
Yeah, we're just gonna change the podcast name to the Blade Runner Cosmos.
Yeah, something like that. But
TM.
exactly, exactly. But I wanted to go ahead and just close out the conversation with this. It's just with this coming out next year, HBO Max is not going to be doing the day and dates for movies next year. So they have to go ahead and rely on series such as this to be the backbone of what they're doing to grow going forward. I have my doubts HBO Max will see the kind of growth next year that they did this year because of the fact they're not doing the day and dates anymore. It's something that people got used to, and now they're not going to have it anymore. Your thoughts on HBO Max succeeding next year with series like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think they kind of have to rely on these big budget series, and knowing that, I'm curious what else is going to be coming out. But also, I have a feeling they're going to be doing like what Disney does, where you have the 45-day window release. Like I guess it all depends on like the success or failure of a movie as well. But I can see them really trying to shorten that window as much as possible to keep people on the subscription, because I'm curious here once the 30, because even like we've been talking about like maybe shutting down HBO Max until we actually need it once the end of the year rolls around.
Well, it's something people are going to have to think about when they're talking about extending their HBO Max subscriptions, because next year they're not going to get the day and dates, but they will be getting series like House of the Dragon. It's a prequel set 200 years before the events of the Game of Thrones. So we want to hear your thoughts. Are you excited for the House of the Dragon? Please share us your thoughts. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, coming up next, we got Jeff Sloboda from the MCU's Bleeding Edge. He's going to talk about, I guess, an epitaph on Marvel's What If. How did he enjoy it? How much did he enjoy it? Did he think that it was worthwhile? Did he think it just helped stabilize the Marvel Cinematic Multiverse, per se? And he'll also share some thoughts on if this whole TV thing going on with Disney Plus and Marvel has worked to his expectations. So he'll go ahead and share his thoughts on that coming up after the break. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back to close out the show. It's the Pop Culture Cosmos. It's Gerald Glassford back with you, along with my good friend, Mr. Josh Peterson. Mr. Josh Areno, I wanted to ask you a couple things before we head on out. GTA, something that was one of the world's worst kept secrets in the gaming industry. Rockstar did announce that Grand Theft Auto, the trilogy, the definitive edition, will be coming out later this year to consoles and next year to mobile devices. And it will feature three of its most storied, beloved, and most popular of the series, although we can't say that too much because GTA 4 and especially GTA 5, we know how well that one's done because that's sold over 100 million copies in and of itself. But GTA 3, GTA 5 City, and GTA San Andreas will be bundled up, will be remastered, and will be presented to you later this year on the consoles. So I want to hear your thoughts on the good news and on the good side is that this will be, if you're really looking to back into it, or if you're to get into it for the first time, this could be hundreds of hours of gameplay for you. And I do not undersell that and underestimate that. Hundreds of hours of gameplay for you. People played this back in the day, these games, and they were playing these games for years. The bad news is that these games are going to be bundled at a full price for the regular consoles, Xbox One and PlayStation 4, and they're going to be bundled at $70 for the newest consoles, the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. So I want to hear your thoughts, my friend. This is Rockstar again at its finest, reaching into its bag of tricks and pulling out some way to go ahead and earn a lot of cash without having to bring out GTA 6 anytime soon.
Yeah, it's interesting, I suppose, because you look at this. Everyone always like you and I obviously are big Mass Effect fans, but when that came out, the Ultimate Edition, I don't know what the sales did, but people stopped talking about it within like 2 weeks of it releasing.
Actually, they were a little bit longer. It sold well for EA. EA has not provided numbers, but they said it sold well.
But yeah, okay, but I mean, like within like my group of friends who all love games and like stuff like that, they stopped talking about Mass Effect pretty quick. So I'm wondering. I mean, I still am playing it, so I still enjoy it. But
As am I.
um, what I'm wondering here is how many of the people who are on Grand Theft Auto, whatever the latest one, 5 right now, and they've invested all that time and money into their game, how many of them are going to be like, oh, hey, maybe I'm going to stop playing this for a while and go back to these other games?
I would say either younger audiences maybe wanting to experience it for the first time, and because they heard about their dad and the hot coffee
But
thing, so
it,
maybe they're going to try and explore that.
but to me, it's going to be like
Although
watching.
I'm assuming that's probably going to be edited out.
But it's also like me watching somebody go to a or not somebody going to the theaters to watch Jurassic Park versus the first one versus watching the latest Jurassic Park. Like it's going to be an experience for a little bit, and then I think that to them though nothing's going to beat the freshness of the newer ones. So like when I try to go back and play, like I wanted to go back and play Jade Empire, so I bought the game because I never played that when it came out, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And I played it for about 30 minutes. The same thing with Psychonauts, but like just the lack of newness of the game and the way the graphics looked. I was like, this doesn't really hold up as well as I was led to believe. So I stopped playing them. I'm just curious how many people are going to be like that, you know?
I think there's going to be a few people because it has to be remastered very well if that's the case.
Because yeah, and a lot of people confuse remaster with remake. They're not remaking these games, they're just giving them faster like load times and just making everything look a little more crisp.
Because you remember from those days that these were not cutting edge graphics wise.
Right.
They were meant more for gameplay and tons and tons of hours of gameplay and things such as in Vice City. I mean, the soundtrack. I mean, you could go ahead and people would just get in a car, and I did this too. You get in a car and you just listen to the radio because of all the things that you could hear as far as talk shows, the different stations, the music, the whole entire list, because there were dozens and dozens of songs that you could listen to, shows, and a whole life in and of itself
Yeah.
just by going ahead and sitting in a car and listening to the radio just in Vice City, not to mention what the things you can do with it. And with San Andreas, I mean, it was just the idea of going to a mythical Las Vegas or mythical San Francisco and traveling in between those three cities and going in, as far as they weren't called that, but you
Yeah.
just go ahead and just Los Santos and I think San Andreas, of course, just traveling to those three cities and all the things you could experience, not only within those cities themselves, but the traveling in between and the hours it would take. And that to me was the grandeur of it. It wasn't cutting edge graphics at the time. The characters were kind of like blocky, and
Yeah.
it wasn't really good in detail or anything like that. But it was the storytelling, as was the things that you can create and do, and it was the exploration and the fact that you could do so many things on your own, which still is part of the charm of GTA 5 even to this day. And the part of the reason why it's held on so well since 2014 is the fact that you can do so many things that just break the confines of the game itself. It to me is this is what those games were all about. But will they be presented in such a fashion that it's going to adapt for a new audience? I mean, we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to
Yeah.
wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like point being, it was a moment. Those games all captured unique moments in time, and like they even spawned their own pop culture movements. But as we've seen today, even like with history in general, like right, nobody cares about World War II anymore, even though it's such a momentous occasion for our country. But people just don't really care to learn. Everyone's so focused on the moment these days. So I'm just curious how many people are going to be like, oh, I want to go back and play these pieces of pop culture history, or maybe I'll just stick with what I'm already playing or play more Roblox or something. You know, it's just it's hard to tell where the interest level's at, especially since I haven't heard anyone say, "Hey, I truly would like to see this happen."
I'm just checking out to see if you have on your table there from Burger King some hot coffee.
Somewhat.
Hot coffee.
Huh.
Get it? Hot coffee is a joke from GTA. Never mind.
Oh, see, even I've forgotten about most of the stuff from GTA.
I'm sure that hot coffee end of it will be not part of it, even though I'm sure some people will buy it just for that specific glitch per se.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be something that's not going to be there. I don't think Rockstar will do that. I don't think Rockstar will make that same mistake twice. Or maybe they actually left it in there knowing it was in there. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Not knowing Rockstar and knowing what Rockstar does, that's I never know what they're up to. So they're always allowing so many crazy things there. So you know what? It is GTA, the trilogy, and it's something that I think maybe some people will be looking forward to. I think it's going to get at least a nice reception from people who want to relive those three awesome games from the past, and that is GTA 3, GTA Vice City, and GTA San Andreas. Are you excited for a remastered version of the GTA trilogy coming out later this year to consoles and next year to mobiles? Please, to mobile devices. Please share us your thoughts. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, before we head on out, I know as a Resident Evil fan, you checked out the latest trailer that Netflix has for Welcome to Raccoon City. It's revival of the Resident Evil movie franchise with a rebooted movie franchise here that's coming up November 24th. Features an all new cast. Valentines are there. Both Jill, the Valentines are there. We're going to have a lot of people there that's interested in going ahead and checking it out. I mean, I don't know. I mean, to me, Leon Kennedy is going to be there. Jill Valentine. I don't know. It just let me know your thoughts on this because I'm kind of like on the fence on this. I'm not a big I was never a big fan anyways of the Resident Evil movie franchises, but it did earn Sony over $1 billion during its lifetime at the theaters. So I want to hear your thoughts. Are you ready to be welcomed back into Raccoon City?
So is this just out of curiosity? Is this a movie or is this going to be on Netflix?
This is a live action movie. It'll be showcased in some theaters, but it will be showcased day and date on Netflix.
Okay. All right. So I guess like
It'll have the Redfields in it, Claire and Chris. It'll have Jill Valentine, that character, but none
yeah.
of the actors really outside of Neil McDonough, who plays William Birkin, will actually be of any interest or someone that you know. These are all relatively unknown actors.
And that's fine. I mean, I guess like at first glance watching this trailer, it was cool. You know, like I got that same. So when I was a kid, Resident Evil 2 came out, right? Resident Evil 2 was it was all the kids were playing it. Like if you it's kind of like what Mortal Kombat did. Like it was that forbidden fruit that your parents didn't want you to play, but you could go over to other kids' house and play it. Um, and I just remember being sitting in like dark rooms with my friends, like watching this game and playing this game, and just like that sense of like that the creeps that you got from sitting there, hearing the zombies and like the CRT speakers, you know, like from one side of the TV and wondering like, oh no, something behind me. And I relived that feeling playing the Resident Evil 2 remake, and it was that like the chills that went down your spine, the forebodingness of it all. And as soon as I turned on that trailer, I felt it again. Like I felt it like I was playing the game, and because that's something I never experienced with the old Resident Evil movies, like Mia Jovovich and Michelle Rodriguez. Like that was something that that series was completely lacking. And now watching this trailer, I do want to watch this like very badly. You know, like
I
it,
know our friends at Retro City Games, they posted it, and they rarely post any non game related things that they're selling in their store. They posted this on their website and they are excited for it. So I
yeah.
know they're looking forward to it.
This
So
this feels like the first time Resident Evil has been made for the Resident Evil fans. You know, like
yeah, you could be right.
there was some fan service in like the Mia Jovovich movies, but they were never made for the fans. They were made for the spectacle and the box office returns, because they were trying to be like, even though they weren't that high, they were trying to be like Fast and the Furious. Like, what kind of spectacle can I create? But it was never meant for the people who actually like the Resident Evil franchise. But now this series feels like it was made for them.
We'll see if it actually keeps and garner. We'll actually see if it grows that audience. That's the thing. Yeah, if it's going to have that audience, it brings in the hardcores. That's awesome. But will it continue to go ahead and have the people talking on Netflix, similar to what they've seen so far this year from Squid Game and from some of the other things that they've done? I know The Witcher will it take on a life of its own like The Witcher has, Squid Game has, and Stranger Things, and some of the other popular series and movies that have taken place and been shown on Netflix? So I'm curious to see whether Welcome to Raccoon City will connect with an audience on Netflix when it debuts next month, November 24th. It'll be available in some theaters, but will also be day and date with Netflix. So we want to hear your thoughts if you're looking forward to being welcomed back into Raccoon City for once again a reboot of the Resident Evil movie franchise. We want to hear your thoughts. If you want to be welcomed back into Raccoon City, please share us your thoughts. Popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode, but before we head on out, Arcade One Up, they announced for their holiday season they announced 3 new cabinets that they've got on the way. A Ridge Racer stand-up version, because they had a sit-down version before. They announced a stand-up version. That's kind of cool. Driving games are always cool for me. They also announced Killer Instinct, which I know had been sought for by fans. It was one of their top 10 choices out there that I've been seeing over the course of the past couple of years. And one title that's coming out, one arcade cabinet that they're bringing out, which has been really heavily asked for since actually the birth of Arcade One Up, is finally coming out, that they got the rights to, and that is Tron. This is something that with Tron, you have to have the special flight controller on one side and the dial on the other. So it's not exactly something you could have replicated on any other type of machine. You'd have to have it specifically made for it. So I want to hear your thoughts on this, my friend. I think Tron is going to be something that's going to have a nice reception. People are going to be very interested in. Killer Instinct. Killer Instinct is like the other guys compared to the popularity of Street Fighter and
Oh,
Mortal Kombat. It
absolutely.
does,
Yeah.
yeah, it just does not have that connection with a huge group of fans. Although Killer Instinct is obviously more appreciated, I think, in a Nintendo 64 form when it came out. That I think a lot of people like that version better, but that's coming out in arcade form. But your thoughts on Tron and what Arcade One Up has to offer this holiday season?
Okay, so Tron is an interesting one that I didn't think that I mean I never even guessed that that would come out by Arcade One Up. So I guess the big question here is just like we were talking about with Grand Theft Auto. Are there enough people out there who really care to own it? You know, like
I think Tron, yes.
I know that the nostalgia crowd, like, you know, like us, like, yeah, we will care to own it, but the people who like to have these arcade cabinets, is this one that they're going to spend their money on? Possibly. I'm more interested in Ridge Racer though, because I didn't really care much for the sit down one, but this stand up one looks just like the ones that were always in the pizza places growing up, and this
Yep.
has definitely garnered my attention. But the big question here is that, you know, will I be able to get it? Because after our last experience with Arcade One Up, my wife doesn't want any more Arcade One Up systems in the house. So
Ooh, so tell us what happened.
oh, it just she didn't like the emulation system, or not the game that was used for Galaga, because we're big Galaga fans, and she didn't like that it was the PS3 version used in the Galaga cabinet as opposed to the original
Mm.
arcade. So that's why we ended up getting the At Games arcade one up, or not arcade one up, the At Games Legends arcade system, because we were able to like put our own, actually find these games and put them on the arcade cabinet. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I want to do some research on it, but if it is in fact the old arcade version of these games, then yeah, I could definitely be interested in it. What about you? I mean, I see your King of Fighters back there, or what is that? Final Fight?
It's Final Fight.
Final Fight back there. Do you have? I mean, is there room in the cave for another arcade system?
Well, I've been trying to get my hands on an NBA Jam for some time now. To be honest with you, because I want to get an NBA Jam because of the four-player options. To me, I think that's something that was really cool, especially if
Do they?
I
Do they not?
like you emulate it and get
Yeah.
some additions to it. And I'll just say that. But that's something I want to target for. And if that's the case, I would probably go ahead and trade it out my Final Fight for, because I really want a
Yeah.
four-player space. I really
Do
want a
they,
four-player cabinet.
do,
That's what my goal is.
do they not have any out there in Las Vegas? Because there's a bunch out here in Waco. I've
Oh yeah,
seen
they're
NBA
here.
Jam.
They're just
Oh, okay.
still, they're just not going in the price where I want to go. I still don't want to
Yeah.
pay $400
Oh,
for it.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I get you.
because right now they're for $400, and The Simpsons, which is a four-player game, there too, four-player cabinet,
Yeah.
and that's still $400. And I'm waiting till it just hits just the right price first, just the right price for me.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. I'd love to go ahead and have a four-player cabinet. Although this Final Fight has been pretty fun, I just enjoyed it. But again, I would like to see a four-player cabinet. But let me ask you this. This leads me into something we've talked about before, but haven't in quite a while. If you could have any arcade one-up cabinet from any arcade game in the past, what would you like?
Dude, that's such a great question. Like, I would love to have a one of those old the Neo Geo arcades. I know they
Oh
make
yeah, I
they
remember
make
those.
them, but like I don't know. Like, there's something and I'm not going to like admit to doing the things we were talking about just a second ago, but like it's hard to find certain games, if you are interested in doing that type of thing, and Metal Slug is one of them. So I would love to own like a legitimate arcade cabinet that has Metal Slug and like Bust a Move all together, like not like the made cheap versions, but like the legitimate ones that were in the arcades back in the 90s. That's what I would love to have.
For me, again, it still comes down to having a old WWF Superstars and Royal Rumble combo. That would, for me, WWE Superstars and WWE WrestleFest on
Okay.
one cabinet. That would be amazing. That would be the golden ticket for me right there.
Yeah.
I'm
What
just,
what about did you ever like play any of the old rail shooters that used to be out there, like Time
oh yeah,
Crisis
absolutely.
or
I mean, House of the Dead, Terminator. I think they're
House of the
coming
Dead?
out with some type of those. I think at some point they are. I'm sure that's something that's going to be something that's going to be added in there, because I know there is a demand for those type of deals.
Yeah.
The House of the Dead and Arcade One Up. If they were to do that, plus maybe put what's the Revolution one. So
Yeah, because it's funny if you go online and look at like even the custom arcade cabinet makers, like they can only do so much. The technology is not out there for them to be able to like put the rail shooters or the steering wheels or really any of the cool stuff onto their arcade cabinet. They can
Aerosmith
just make.
Revolution game. Remember that
Yeah,
one? That shooter.
yeah. I always like the Jurassic Park one because you didn't just have the pistols; you had like the full-on rifles in the car. That was cool.
Well, we want to know what are your thoughts on the holiday lineup for Arcade One Up with Tron, a stand-up Ridge Racer, and Killer Instinct coming to retail shelves and also arcade1up.com. Want to go ahead and hear your thoughts on if you're interested in any one of these cabinets, or if you could have a cabinet of your own that Arcade One Up would make for you, which game would that be? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode. I cannot thank you enough, as always, for being part of the program. I cannot thank you enough, as always, for being part of the program today. Any last thoughts on the way out.
I want to ponder this thought, on the next few episodes. Toy stores. Are we going to see a reemergence of such beloved toy stores as the holidays come out? Toys R Us, KB Toys. I know Macy's bought Toys R Us. So as we get closer to the holidays, are we actually going to see these promised Toys R Us stores pop up within these Macy's like they said? Or do you think that was just like last year when they're like, oh, hey, KB Toys is coming back now, and that never actually happened?
Well, definitely would be interested to see what happens if that could be the case. But yes, I mean, that's just some great memories right there, my friend.
I know.
I just,
I'd like to devote a couple episodes to like exploring those companies one day.
absolutely. You got it. Let's set it up. Let's do the deal.
All
How
right.
soon would you like it? Next week?
Uh,
Starting next week?
let me script something out, and then we'll
Okay.
let me get my facts all in a row, and then we can go from there.
All right. Sounds good, my friend. I'm looking forward to it, and I know our listeners are as well. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the pop culture cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great